government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
Father, before I begin, bless me, Father, for I'm about to sin. America. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America. One nation, indivisible, under God, for real. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys. Senators here. Chuck, stand up, Chuck. Let him see you. Oh, God love you. What am I talking about? I tell you what, you're making everybody else stand up, though, pal. Thank you very, very much. I tell you what, stand up for Chuck. The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, from Charlotte, another line going from in Florida down to Tampa of Putin's kleptocracy. Yeah. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him. The idea that Los Angeles and what am I doing here? For two reasons. One, you won't be safe in Joe Biden's America. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. Let's be clear. I hear it all the time. Cumulative, after I can play for the programs many times over. Well, I'm sick and tired of smart guys. Let me start off with two words. Made in America. Made in America.
Oh, welcome back to another night of Shtick with Koolfrogg. Oh my Lord. I made it. Just be happy I made it. Everybody should hit the like button for the simple fact that I made it. I'm here. Life, sometimes changes. Things happen to be different from day to day. And you got a little kid in the household that all of a sudden decides to want to do different things that you're not used to them doing. They're growing older. They're growing taller and still refusing to do other things. And fatherhood is wonderful. I'm very grateful for the matter. I really do. I love that kid. He's such a handful for sure. Say hi to everybody real quick. What's up, Boomer? Good to see you, dude. David S. What's up? Good to see you. This Corn Pop was definitely a bab dude. Yes, a bab dude. Because if we said it correctly, it would come out. It would sound right, but nope. Okay, well, I wasn't going to. I told myself that I should just stay off the camera. Stay off the camera. It's not necessary. It'd be very. He's awake. He's awake. There's a reason that I'm. Just get out of the shower, all that other wonderful thing to go along with that. So, being that he's awake, frogs are sensitive to toxic chemicals. Yes, frogs are sensitive to toxic chemicals. Good to see you, Squad Bob. Beautiful. Beautiful's here. So, I said that if Boomer wanted to, she could join me. It's up for her. Let me know. Either way, we're going to move on with this news. Oh, it's Nandor. I should only whisper very, very few words, as it puts her to sleep when I whisper. So I should talk in regular tone for the most. Should we invite? All right, all right. You don't have to stick around all night. You do what you want, how you want. You got your opinions, and I'm good with that. So let's see here. We're gonna kick off this weekend already, right here tonight. With guests. It's a fun weekend of guests. Because as we wait for Boomer to bring herself in here, P-Dog Night joins tomorrow night for an open mic. That's up to anybody that wants to, feels that they have an opinion or a thought to go along with us, to go ahead and join us. That is up to you if you want. There's lots of people potentially going to be there, as you just never know who decides to show up for Friday night open mic. Again, featuring P-Dog Night. Very fun, interesting way of delivering the news himself. Then on Saturday, have the one and only Eric Hunley. I really do not know what to expect. That is a members only stream. We will be doing that as well this coming. And then Sunday is okay. There you go. Sunday is going to be Vicky's birthday party. That should be fun in itself. You'd be surprised how many people will show up for that. Those are middle of the day. Be like noon Sunday. Be ready for this awesome weekend of guests. What's up, Boomer?
Hey.
What are you doing? So
I am chilling and detoxing.
I mean, I was going to ask you, so how far? So you say you know somebody in this area? Is that what's going on with this particular first topic of the night?
Yes.
Rail car carrying toxic chemicals explodes in North Platte. Evacuation order lifted. Now, North Platte, if I did my research correct when I looked around, said that it was one of the largest inland hubs in America.
Yep. Largest diesel yard in the world for quite a while. Diesel train yard.
Only until recently, once they built something up in Phoenix?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then when you look at CP Rail Line, and just CP Rail Line in itself, Moose, I believe, had sent a map. When you look at the map, you can see where everything bottlenecks into North Platte and then gets distributed out amongst its multiple different destinations.
Yes.
Both ways. It's very, very large shipping yard. I had looked this up earlier to see how big this was, and before I even seen any of this news on it, I'm like, oh, this is a huge, shipping yard. So for something like this to happen, has a better potential of happening here, according to the way they're saying it happened. So this is the evacuation order due to toxic smoke from the rail car explosion in Union Pacific Bailey Yard in North Platte has been lifted. According to Union Pacific Railroad, around noon Thursday, an explosion occurred inside a container, resulting in several rail cars catching on fire. said there's no derailment. The car was stationary in the yard, and that it had caught fire and had a hazardous chemical called perchloric acid.
Yes. It occurred just slightly outside of the Golden Spike Tower, which is this great big, huge spike that they spent millions of dollars to build so people could go up onto a raised platform and look over the rail yard.
Okay. They tried to make it a tourist destination to go look at trains.
Yes.
Sure. Because
Believe it or not,
you'd see most. Now
it's popular.
I would assume when you look at it, is that this isn't just Union Pacific.
Mm-mm.
This is multiple different rail companies that would have.
It's run by Union Pacific, and most of the trains that go through are UP, but there are some other travels and switches and stuff that will occur.
But the rail yard in itself is Union Pacific's rail yard.
Mm-hmm.
Massive rail yard out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, it used to be part of the thing is that area right there. It's part of the Oregon Trail. And if you go west a little ways, you're going to see Chimney Rock, which is one of the great big huge landmarks being able to go to California along the Oregon Trail. So when they built the railroads, they built it in this area, and this basically became a natural location for things to kind of come together. And then everything ended up getting torn apart when the railroads were, monopolies were getting broken up and so on and so forth. And then everybody has their section now.
Do you think this might have something to do with all these other things that have been going on?
After looking into perchloric acid, I honestly think it was probably something very negligent that happened. I looked up a information sheet from Kansas State University.
Right.
And one of the things about perchloric acid is you can't just have one containment system for it. You have to have two. Because this stuff, if it gets on something that is cotton, wool, wood, paper, whatever, it will spontaneously combust when exposed to oxygen.
Right. Very, very explosive.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Very explosive,
And
very unstable.
And
So
it melts aluminum, does bad things to copper, brass, bronze. You
can see these multiple lines.
Mm-hmm.
It's all considered Union Pacific Bailey Yard. That's massive. That's a lot of rare. You'd almost think that most everybody that lives in this town works for the railroads.
There's quite a few who work for the railroad. Most of that area along West Front Street that's green there is, residences that are a little further apart. Yeah. But there's some scattered residences around here. You get a little more properties. But then it's just like right there as it all kind of comes to a neck is where the city starts.
Oh yeah, when you actually click on North Platte itself, it shows you the city boundaries. So this is not a city-owned project. This is their own project outside the city.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's railroad property.
Right. So then where did this happen? This happened up in this area?
A little further to the left, you see where things are kind of, they come to a neck and then they spread out. Yeah, so it'd be right about where your cursor is. Nope, back
Somewhere in here.
a little further down, south. There you go. Nope, up a little bit more.
So somewhere in this area.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the multiple different cars. So, one car, they got them sorted pretty well for, for this particular picture.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, if something happened to one car here, these cars around this vicinity are going to be the ones that are going to be hit, so
Yep.
you don't know what's next to the car, the car next to it or whatever. Because the one car, it sounded like it was a wheat car at first, and then all of a sudden they changed it, and they're like, one of the cars really is
It had a chemical.
or a chemical, and then we did this research on it. We looked this up.
Mm-hmm.
So then, just doing some looking around to see if there's anyone that had any better footage, and very few. I've seen this picture several times, but I didn't see the video. So there's a 12-second video that was taken where this picture was.
Yeah, that is taken just a little bit to the southwest. It looks like, because that is the road that's called Front Road.
This is front
It's
right
like
here?
it's a frontage road. Yeah,
Right.
and that's the road that goes along to Highway 30. There's an overpass after the big hump. But this was down in the yard. They were just stationary, waiting to move.
Vendor's Man says spontaneous combustion. The way it's kind of sounding is that could potentially be something just so happened to be the right conditions for that to occur.
Oh, yeah. And in the storage, I mean, it very clearly says Kansas State University says it has to be stored in its original container with compatible secondary containment, preferably glass or porcelain. And if something happens to where it starts forming crystals or turns dark, it's about to explode. And they have to contact their emergency services immediately. You can't move the bottle. You leave the room and get somebody.
So they really had some interesting photos of North Platte and the evacuation areas.
Mm-hmm. They even went a little further into town, getting people to evacuate for a few hours.
Oh, okay. So it did change.
I don't
direction.
think that's Ohio. That's not us.
Yeah, see, I like how they do that. Like how they do that. Us and they're like, hey, look, Ohio Trainer Ramon's. Well, that's always fun when they're like, oh, we can add a couple to this list of train jail railroad pictures. So wonderful of them to do such a thing.
Yeah.
Like, wow. That all happened in the middle of the day. It was kind of amazing that it had a picture at night. See, they're just trying to show it. Oh, that's why. is because their story actually goes into. The only thing I cared about was that picture, or this video, and this picture here that showed, a location on it. So again, yet one more time that that this has happened. We've seen plenty of train explosions, derailments, things of this nature that just so happen to happen. Foul play. Do you think it would be foul play, or do you think this is
I
spontaneous?
not gonna lie, you never know, because they found a dead body in one of the engine cars a few months back.
Watch for my cursors.
Oop,
Why do
so-
I have to watch for my cursors?
Maybe because you're giving people headaches, scaring them a little bit.
What's up? What's up, Debbie? Good to see you. Are the lights flickering and flashing?
No, not that I saw.
What? What the heck is a unicameral legislature?
Oh, it's squab. It's a cluster flock. That's what it is. It's a whole bunch of turkeys running around, flapping their wings, making gobbly noises.
I found it very interesting. So then the perchloric acid says it's one of the strongest mineral acids and present in higher oxidizing power at high temperature. It is more than 50% more, not more than 72% of acid appears in a clear, colorless, odorless aqueous solution. So why in the world would we take it to the point of continuously shipping these very highly flammable, explosive contaminants the way we do? Why would we continue to do this? Why is it that they've broken this up? Used to be that these types of businesses would be right next to each other to prevent you from having to ship things for distances to get them to. I find it ridiculous. And
Well, I would find it very interesting to learn where this is actually manufactured at to begin with. This is something that creates a whole lot of waste that if we don't see it, if it's not in, if the waste results aren't being deposited in our backyard and it's being deposited in like somewhere like China or India, does that make it okay? That makes it better. So then it's made there and then brought here and then put on railroad tracks and sent all over the country. And now we're having, these issues because we don't want it made in our backyard anymore.
And just looking it up and trying to read through, the chemical in itself really isn't going to give me that data and where it's coming from, where it's going to. You'd think there wouldn't be a lot of places where this would come from. This has killed people before for how explosive it really is. It was something about California back in 1947 or something. there was an explosion that killed multiple people. So they potentially were taking care of this particular chemical correctly. I have a feeling that this one might just be the lame duck out of the bunch that just didn't have anything to do with anything in particular, because it was stationary. That's the weird one. It was stationary. Nothing was moving when this happened. It really confuses me. I think somebody may have targeted it and it went off too soon. They would want it to be downline where it could cause damage. I don't know. We're just going to speculate.
No. We have people screaming about the methane that's coming out of cows' butts right now. Can you imagine how much methane a mammoth would create? Besides, it's too hot here for mammoths. They wouldn't be able to handle the 100+ degree temperatures during the summer. They'd probably have to go north to like North Dakota or something, maybe even up to Canada.
David S. says, I haul chemicals every night. Dangerous when wet and flammable liquid tonight. See that? Get paid some extra money for that. Here, Rose.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that stuff.
Squab of hashtag repopulate Nebraska with mammoth now.
But I will say, from the looks of things, if even one of those, if these were in jars and boxes or crates or whatnot, all it would take is one of those to crack or one of those to leak just right, get enough exposure to oxygen that it starts to dissipate and then starts to, crystallize and do that whole thing. And then it just, a jiggle or a move or just the right gust of wind happens to hit the rail car and boom, you've got an explosion. And I have to say, about the only really good news out of all of this today is there were no injuries.
That's, yeah. Luckily, that happened to be the case. What's up, Momentum Maury? Good to see you. How about some mastodons then? I think they were less hairy. Mastodons instead of mammoths? Thoughts? No?
I guess that wouldn't be much worse than buffalo, I'd imagine. They're
good to see you, Momentum Maury. Good to see you.
There's a place outside of Sutherland, Nebraska that has a bunch of storage containers with buffalo inside to protect it, better than guard dogs.
Said mastodons in Florida. I don't know about mastodons in Florida. Sometimes it makes you wonder, and kind of be like, yeah, maybe. If they find the bones and they can prove that it was there, I'm down. It's cool. Will the mastodons come back? Nah, Humans are just too destructive. We eliminated them. You here for a ride? You want to go through a few things, or
Yeah, I can stay on for a little bit.
okay? You let me know
Okay.
whenever you want. You go. So then, Libya, 7,000 dead, up to 20,000 feared lost in biblical floods in Libya. It looked like there was quite a bit of water that was dumped from this destruction that happened up in Libya. So it sounded like they were struck by uh, um, some kind of event of storms, and it broke through. So it says the death toll is anticipated to reach about 7,000. More than 5,500 already confirmed dead on Thursday morning, sending officials that UN World Health Organization in Libya. Expert meteorologists reported 7,000 confirmed fatalities. Somewhere between 9,000 and 20,000 people are missing. Really kind of interesting how they call something between the difference between dead and missing. So people within the city of Derna said that they heard a series of loud explosions prior to the dams bursting. Before waters ripped through heavily populated city or region, the waters destroyed buildings and are believed to have washed some people out to sea. So lots of destruction to go along with this. Destroyed the whole area, that whole all these buildings.
Yeah, that's what's. Oh God.
Now, I'm
So
not
that
trying to
was
take anybody's footage from anybody or anything, whatever.
So basically, the dams that they had in place burst, and all of that riverside property, because I'm sure that was a very controlled river. Just oh man.
I bet it was very controlled, and when it took on that much of a payload, for it to just disrupt its own banks and destroy this city. I think this one showed the difference between the two. So then you can see where it was to what happens to it. Gets totally washed out, destroyed. Very sad to see how bad that really affected that region. Just push people right out to sea.
And they would have had no warning.
Right. We keep all of them in our prayers because, why not? Why would we, not believe that everybody should be safe and for them to be washed out to sea would be very scary. Be very scary for anybody.
That is.
I'd like to taste the mastodon steak, though. I guess. What's up, Suzanne? So
I do have memento mori. I have a question. Would you marinate, or are you going to be a elitist and just do garlic, salt, and pepper to see what the original taste should be like? That's my question.
see, I'd be one of those that'd try it without any seasoning. Then I'd just do the salt. Then I'd throw some pepper on to see what the difference is.
Nah, I'd go garlic, salt, and pepper the first time. My husband, he likes to play with his steak and turn it into not real food. And he puts like hot pepper and kind of like a generic meat seasoning on it. But me, I'm like, no, garlic, salt, and pepper, medium rare. That's all you need to do on a steak. If it's on the grill longer than 5 minutes, you've burnt it.
I mean, true. I mean, if it's really been on the grill for longer than 5 minutes, you've probably burnt it. You've probably ruined it forever. It's never going to be any good whatsoever. How do you feel about this guy? Hunter Biden indicted in gun charges in Delaware. He is indicted on the gun charges. So, I mean, will they stick?
No.
I think it's more theater. It's more theater for us to pay attention to, for them to actually indict him on the gun charges that they said that they weren't going to indict him on. Is interesting in itself. Court proceedings being paid for by you and I. We'll be fine with that, I guess, as long as they leave it open so we can all see. So we can all see. We can all watch everything that's being said. We can hear all the words and make up our own opinions on it.
Yeah, but there's no consequences for him because his dad's a politician on the right side of the political divide, which is the left.
The left. The left side of the political divide. Yeah. Right.
And then we've got, people getting just jailed for years without due process and literally being treated inhumanely for being stupid. Granted, there should be a consequence. I don't think imprisonment for 3 years. I don't think what a lot of people are going through right now is the least bit appropriate with the action that was taken.
Sure.
And especially considering that we had a bunch of protesters break into the Senate offices just last week or over the weekend. And what's going to happen to them?
That'd be my sentiment exactly. Let's just indict him on anything that's not linked to Daddy or can't be linked to Daddy. If we did any of them that were linked, maybe we would get somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And we would see exactly how deep Biden's ties really are before he's too old and no longer on the face of the planet. I think he gets to go down. He gets to go down with many others in history books as being one of the worst tyrants. But,
Well, and the unfortunate thing is there's a lot of people out there who still look at, Teddy Roosevelt as the second coming of Christ and thinking that, the policies he put in place were the best things ever. But it's just caused further decay and disruption of what is potentially one of the best political systems in the world at this point in time.
Daddy can't pardon him on these. There was something that was said at one point in time where it said that Daddy can't pardon him, that he'd be disallowed from doing so. So he would have to get pardoned by the next, which is likely. It's likely to happen. You could see it happening very easily, depending on who they try to forcing in that door, which, paying attention to what's going on recently, and I think I do have a couple things on Joe Biden to go along with it, would really make you believe that this current administration won't be anything similar to the next. It could be the way they're trying to aim it and turn it back around. If they get what they want, the House would turn back to Nancy Pelosi, as she's decided to run.
Which is why she's running again, because she's hoping that with the push with Trump becoming president, they'll be able to take the House and the Senate again.
Right. And make it right, put it right back to where it was. Let's hope that there's enough turmoil in the rest of it to stir the pot up a little bit, per se, because you got rhinos like Romney, stopping, quitting. You got bimbos like Lauren Boebert running around Freedom Caucus wise, and keeping Republicans separated from each other as opposed to being one unified group. Kind of ridiculous when we think about it. So then,
yeah, we've got a bunch of people acting like children instead of working to be a unified front. And yes, I understand. We've also got a lot of rhinos that are have been causing division for more years than I think we really care to recognize. Just in there to play the political game and doing what's best for them. I know there's been more than a few that have come out of the state of Nebraska. Ben Sass, oh God, and Ben Nelson. If anybody ever says, "Hey, my name is Ben, vote for me. I'm in Nebraska," I'm just going to say, "No, go away."
They're like, no.
No.
I doubt it.
No, I've seen too much damage to my pocketbook done by the Bens. Go away.
See, I do this to myself every night. When I go and I look to see what I have up next, and I'm like, that's not anything that's fun. Let's go watch something. Let's go do something fun. So we go with this instead. And Jennifer Granholm, she really has this thing with words. It's kind of fun to listen to. And it really makes you question yourself.
So there is no blocking of production in the United States. So we are continuing to move, and we will continue to see that happen. I do think, though, it is important, if we want to address this big question about climate, that the oil and gas industry partner on the solutions to mitigate the greenhouse gases that are produced. So there is no blocking of production in the United States. So
there's no blocking of production in the United States. What? You just removed a whole ton of leases out of Alaska.
They've canceled just about every single oil lease on federal land possible. But Biden has been giving mineral mining rights to Chinese businesses.
For her to say that though is in itself just, you can straight out false. You can tell that it's straight out false. It's like, no, wait a minute here. You don't count those because they weren't already in production. You're not allowing any new production. It's not helping anything in the near future here. It's really disturbing because we like disturbing and ridiculous old people.
But this is what happens when you can lie without consequence. Like the whole thing about, plastic straws are polluting the environment and causing irreparable harm. So now we have to have paper straws that are wrapped in plastic, and the paper straws actually take longer to break down than the plastic ones.
Well, see, and it wasn't just that either. We went through the paper straw thing or whatever in itself, is they weren't any healthier for you either.
Oh, but you know what the kicker is? The whole paper straw agenda, it started as like somebody's science, elementary school science project. That's what it was. There were no scientific studies, nothing. Somebody saw a kid submit this as a hypothesis, as a elementary science project, and it was ran as a narrative.
How do you feel about this lady?
Oh God.
the oh God is enough.
Anything that comes out of Nancy's mouth.
He thinks so, and that's what matters. And by the way, she's very politically astute. I don't think people give her enough credit. She's, of course, values-based, consistent with the president's values and the rest. And people don't understand, she's politically astute. Why would she be vice president if she were not? But when she was running for attorney general in California, she had 6%.
There is only one reason why she is vice president. And it is not because she is astute. It is not because she's intelligent. It is not because she is well-spoken. It is because she can say that she's Black, or she can say that she is Indian. Like from India, Indian. Not like Pocahontas. That is the only reason, because she has a vagina and she had the appropriate skin color and could be controlled, kind of.
Allegedly.
Although if you put a microphone in front of her face, she sounds like an absolute idiot most of the time anyway.
Percent in the polls. 6% in the polls. And she politically astutely made her case about why she would be good, did her politics, and became attorney general. So people shouldn't underestimate what
did her politics.
She did her politics on her knees. With the head bob
forward.
With the Pelosi head bob.
Maybe with two in between. You just never know. You just never know. I think you're right, beautiful. I think you're right. It's very, very good. Large, stiff, veiny, hairy.
Then I remember her birthday party.
To the table.
Do you think she is the best running mate, though?
She's the vice president of the United States. So when people say to me, well, why isn't she doing this or that? I said, because she's the vice president. That's the job description. You don't do that much. You're a source of strength, inspiration, intellectual resource, and the rest. I think she's represented our country very well at home and abroad.
President Kamala.
Still hasn't visited the southern border.
Oh my God. Like I said, they can just sit
beautiful
there and
screaming,
lie
"No."
without consequence.
Thanks, Nancy Pelosi, for telling us what she thinks about cackling Kamala Harris.
You know, I have to give the Democrats some credit here, because no matter how horrendous, how horrific, how horrible a human is, if they decide they're going to back them and sing their praises, every single Democrat's going to step in line, back them up, and sing their praises.
I like how they did this article today, and they broke up the video so you didn't have to watch the whole video. You could just had to share 2 or 3 videos, and you could get the point. They did a wonderful job. Thanks, post millennial.
Do you think there's any chance he does not continue running?
I hope not. I mean, this president.
David Ignatius recently came out saying he thinks the former president should not run.
Yeah, so that's one.
Oh, her face. It's just like, oh God, we are so screwed. Look at that freeze frame. We are so screwed.
If it didn't have this stupid blurb over the top of it. And of course, for me to do a replay on it. She knows that this is not going well. This is not going well whatsoever. Those numbers, percentage-wise, for popularity amongst every against every age group in every single demographic, feels pretty much the same way, that they do not like the president or the vice president. On either side of the spectrum, there's a very small population that actually likes Joe Biden.
Although I am going to point out something is, they say that you don't do that much as a vice president. I just want to remind everybody that when Joe Biden was a vice president, he was running over to Ukraine and getting people fired for looking into the business that was paying off his son. And was doing it officially as the vice president of the United States.
Most disturbing administration ever. Call AOC. Biden's cages are back at the border. Tucson sector along the U.S.-Mexico border continues to be slammed with illegal immigrants, straining resources in part of the country and typical sees more gotaways than people claiming asylum. As a result, almost no Border Patrol agents are actively patrolling the southern border because they are having to quickly process and release thousands of illegal immigrants to get out of their facilities. Pictures and videos have emerged once again of illegal immigrants being held behind crowded fencing outdoors, what previously caused outrage from Democrats and their allies in the mainstream media. You remember they pointed fingers. They pointed fingers for a little while. They tried pointing them at Trump, but we all knew that these were built back in 2014 originally to house these particular illegal immigrants for the same reason that they are now under the tutelage of Joseph Robinette Biden as vice president to Obama. And when we've seen it, how it works, and look at the massive amount of people trying to seek asylum. There's millions. I don't know if, it's not gonna allow me to. I don't think we need to play the video. I think we see enough through the pictures that they're showing us how disturbing this really is. Why do they think they want to come here? We see it as what it is, and we're just like, oh, we don't like it.
Well, here's the worst thing about it is that now things have gotten to the point where even in New York, they're screaming because they can't handle it, and they're not getting the backup that they were expecting from Washington, D.C. And the New York mayor sitting there stamping his feet and screaming and yelling, and Biden's ignoring him. Not affecting his house. They're not in Martha's Vineyard with the Obamas, so...
Right?
Mm-hmm. Notice how as soon as the people did get taken to Martha's Vineyard, they were out within 24 hours.
Oh yeah, you take them to the correct places where people don't want them, they will have them removed immediately. But if they get put into a place that's close to a slum, easy to neglect and forget about, and let them fight to continue to make their lives anything better. Nonetheless, handing out as much as they really are in millions and millions of dollars for them to mistreat it, not care about it, and have zero things of appreciation for any of it. It's really sad to see how far this has gone.
And the worst thing is it's people who really don't understand what's going on, and they're basically being sold a lie. That you come to America, Joe Biden will take care of you. They'll put you on welfare. They'll give you food stamps. They'll give you housing. They'll give you this. They'll give you that. And now it's gotten to the point to where that's not even an option.
Look at those young men. Yeah, I mean, some of them might be.
I don't see what you're looking at.
Oh, she was looking at the pictures from earlier
okay.
of all those sitting in those cages. So I mean, what it comes down to, it's very disturbing. It's very disturbing to see how far this has gone. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like how they opened up the border the way they did. And I hope that bites them in the ass in the long run. Because
Well,
most of them are here to, to get a better life. Because that's what they're assuming they're coming here for.
but there's a way to do it, and that's legally. And unfortunately, coming here illegally causes so many issues and problems. And the Dream Act was not a good solution. It did not fix anything. It didn't change anything. It didn't make things any easier. It's almost to the point to where children are coming up missing. Thousands of kids. And it's horrible. I mean, I can't imagine, taking the risk of, shipping my kids off to somewhere like, say, for example, Australia, and hoping to God they make it there in one piece, first of all, or that they don't get sold into slave trade or worse. Because what's happening to these kids?
Right?
Yeah.
And as she said, look at all those men, and when you think about it, you just I had taken the photo down already. I already trashed the article. I probably look in my history or find it or whatever, but it was that. It wasn't like families looking for help to make a better life. It was it looked like a lot of single individual men being put in, being processed. It didn't really look like there was a lot of families.
And all of this does such a huge disservice to the people who took the time and the energy and to do this legally, to be here legally.
I can't see that there's a bunch of men trying to come here thinking that they're going to find a woman to, populate this earth with.
I hate to tell them, but the women that are coming out of the public schools right now are probably not women you want to deal with. They can be kind of scary.
Might just not be women. So there was some impeachment talk that came out of the House today against the one and only Joe Biden. And there's a couple of videos to go with it. And it's kind of interesting to hear.
Proved effective at delaying and pressuring McCarthy's original speaker vote are openly warning tonight that they will oust McCarthy if he does not act on this and other issues like spending and the term limits vote they want. That includes Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz.
Wasn't that part of the original deal? I think that was all part of the original deal that they made with McCarthy to get the Speaker of the House position.
Well, see, now Gaetz and Boebert both of them refused to vote. They refused to vote even at the very, very end, as opposed to abstaining the vote so that they weren't there. Mm-hmm. To lower the number to make it so that McCarthy could actually be put into play. So they found their loophole the 15th time to go around these two to get what they wanted.
Yeah. So by them not,
Gates is not going to stop. He's going to go after McCarthy.
and I think somebody needs to keep calling him to task because he's
a swamp creature.
yeah. He is a mud puppy.
Elizabeth, what's up? She says, Boobert, you mean? Yes, Boobert. I mean, Boobert. What's up, Troy? Good to see you, brother. So the whole situation is disturbing in itself.
Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, who's dialing up pressure and invoking his own past record, exacting concessions from Kevin McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy celebrating a victory that almost didn't happen.
Gaetz, one of the leaders of the rebellion.
Mr. McCarthy doesn't have the votes today. He will not have the votes tomorrow, and he will not have the votes next week, next month, next year.
I mean, this looks like a bit of a heated conversation. Yeah.
This is an incredible moment. McCarthy is now directly engaging Matt Gaetz.
Look at somebody's holding somebody back. Look at that. Oh, somebody just held somebody back.
Joining me now is that Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida. Thanks for...
You can see in his face in that smile of, really? That's the clip of me that you bring up? That's the clip that MSNBC decides to bring forth to try question him on is something that happened almost 3 years ago. Really? You find almost anything better to put a video on. And he told the truth then. He's telling the truth now. He technically did not have the votes.
Making time for us on the beat tonight, sir.
My pleasure. Good to be with you, Ari.
Let's start with this rather newsworthy meeting today. What happened, and did you hear anything from the speaker that addresses these concerns you've gone so public with?
No, I was quite disappointed that at our meeting there wasn't a discussion about how to bring Speaker McCarthy into compliance with that agreement that we hammered out in January. And thanks for not over-torquing impeachment when it comes to my particular grievances. Of course, I think we need fulsome and robust oversight, and I do think that Joe Biden deserves impeachment, but that wasn't a part of the deal that we crafted in January, and it would be dishonest for me to represent that it was. We talked about balanced budgets, term limits, single subject spending bills. Those things have not happened. And frankly, a lot of my constituents over the August break were asking me if I was really serious about the deal, being that we have not done nearly enough to enforce it.
Yeah, you mentioned those items, those terms. Everyone can have a rich sort of debate about them, but we'll put up on the screen some of what you have now claimed this week, that these were things you guys were supposed to get. A vote on the term limits. We know how long people staying in office is controversial. Cutting spending. You mentioned the Jan 6 footage and subpoenas for Hunter Biden. What is most important to you, and what would actually, in your view, affect the lives of the American people if you got any of these?
No, undeniably, it would be the spending. I mean, we're about to hit the moment in time where we're going to run $2 trillion annual deficits at a time when much of the world is de-dollarizing, from BRICS to the African Union to more energy being sold in the yuan with the new deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So as the world de-dollarizes, I think that it's really dangerous for us to be running up these deficits. If Speaker McCarthy brought us individual spending bills over the course of this initial year, he would not be facing the challenge that he faces now from those of us who believe he hasn't been honest. And I know term limits sort of is a talking point to people in the media, but I got to tell you, Ari, as I travel the country and go home, people want to vote on term limits. And I know it's not going to pass initially, but in the words of the great coach Bobby Bowden, sometimes you got to lose by a lot, lose by a little, then win by a little and win by a lot.
Okay. You mentioned this agreement. You're on record and you're on the House floor.
He said a whole bunch of what? Sometimes you win by a little, sometimes you win by a lot. And sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. But, you know, if you keep on trying, eventually you become the creepiest guy in the room.
Or you befuddle the poor MSNBC guy so much that he looks just like he can't even.
This week saying he's violating the agreement.
I thought this year Congressman animated at least showed they care. I mean, I don't think any of them really do when it comes down to it. I doubt it. What's up, Wendy?
Hey, Wendy. Hi, Rose.
Now, one problem with that is
go home. People want to vote on term limits. And I know it's not going to pass initially, but in the words of the great coach Bobby Bowden, sometimes you got to lose by a lot, lose by a little, then win by a little and win by a lot.
Okay. You mentioned this agreement. You're on record and you're on the House floor this week saying he's violating the agreement. Now, one problem with that is the public still hasn't seen the full written agreement. The last time you were here, we discussed that. Let me play a little bit of that. Take a look.
Point blank, Congressman, have you or your staff seen this additional agreement in writing in any form?
Yeah, it took multiple forms. There was specifically a side-by-side sheet where we made offers to McCarthy.
Why not have you and your colleagues who negotiated it just release what was agreed to at the time in writing?
Again, I have no objection to that. I don't know that I still have a copy.
Wouldn't it be better to finally and fully transparently release the whole thing so both your constituents, Republicans, and the public could see what now you claim is his violation of these assorted pledges?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Chip Roy keeps my copy. Tim Wrights at the Freedom Caucus has copies as well. But keep this in mind, Ari. No one is disputing the authenticity of the terms that I have laid out. You know, Kevin McCarthy has 200 allies in Congress, and no,
I'll let you finish on that.
But it's really important.
I'll let you get. But Chip Roy, this is up to Chip Roy to release your agreement.
Why do you feel it necessary to cut him off as he's trying to tell you something that might actually be of interest? But as opposed to getting that information, because it's going to hurt our narrative, let's cut you off, hurry up, and spin it this other way.
Well, I don't have a copy of it. I know it exists, and no one is disputing the terms. So you are picking a fight here that not even Kevin McCarthy and his top allies quibble about. Someone in the press should ask Kevin McCarthy.
Okay.
Did you commit to a term limit?
Well, we're asking everybody. We're asking everybody who'll come on. Are you calling on Congressman Chip Roy to release the agreement tonight?
Well, I leave that up to him. I have no problem with it. If Chip Roy releases the agreement, you will find it is entirely consistent with what I've said. Matter of fact, Chip Roy was asked about the agreement at a press conference earlier this week, and he said, in fact, that all of the claims that I'd made about term limits, balanced budgets, and single subject spending bills were in fact reduced to writing. Again, let's get to something that people are actually quibbling about so we can have a more interesting discussion.
Well, we're going back and forth. But if it's your copy, as you say, if it's part of the agreement you and this group reached, and we showed the sound and you talking about how important this all has been, why don't you get your copy released?
Again, I just told you I don't have a copy, but no one is disputing.
I don't have a copy. I don't have one. I have nothing to release to you. There's nothing that I can do. But why won't you just release it? Because I don't have the ability to do so.
Because he knows that he can't actually discuss whether or not term limits would be a good thing, whether or not having a balanced budget would be a good thing, whether or not the impeachment would be a good thing, because he would be proven to be an idiot. So he just wants to jump into the circular argument that makes no sense and goes nowhere. So he feels important.
This. And by the way, you don't even have to look at a written agreement, because back in January of this year, these things didn't just emerge out of nowhere. We talked about them at the time. So in January, we were saying balanced budgets, term limits, single subject spending bills. Then again, we've said it. And now, unfortunately, at the meeting.
Okay, so I think we've heard enough from this particular speech. There's nothing more that really comes out of it. It continuously goes through the same. Okay.
Hi, Deadpool.
So for what it is really not much more on this video that I really wanted us to hear. And you heard it. You heard it. I can't release any of this information. I don't have the access to release the information, but still threatens on the House floor to do just that. Take and remove McCarthy. I'm going to play this and I'm going to stand up, so I'll be right back.
On this very floor in January, the whole world witnessed a historic contest for House Speaker. I rise today to serve notice. Mr. Speaker, you are out of compliance with the agreement that allowed you to assume this role. The path forward for the House of Representatives is to either bring you into immediate total compliance or remove you pursuant to a motion to vacate the chair. We have had no vote on term limits or on balanced budgets as the agreement demanded and required. There's been no full release of the January 6 tapes as you promised. There has been insufficient accountability for the Biden crime family. And instead of cutting spending to raise the debt limit, you relied on budgetary gimmicks and rescissions so that you ultimately ended up serving as the valet to underwrite Biden's debt and advance his spending agenda. Mr. Speaker, you boasted in January that we would use the power of the subpoena and the power of the purse. But here we are 8 months later, and we haven't even sent the first subpoena to Hunter Biden. That's how you know that the rushed and somewhat rattled performance you just saw from the Speaker isn't real. At this point, during Democrat control over the House of Representatives, they had already brought in Don Jr. 3 times. And we haven't even sent the first subpoena to Hunter Biden. Power of the subpoena and power of the purse. Only thing the 118th Congress is known for at this point is electing Kevin McCarthy Speaker and underwriting Biden's debt. And unfortunately, there's only one of those things we can remediate at this time. Power of the purse. Our leadership right now is asking us to vote for a continuing resolution. A vote for a continuing resolution is a vote to continue the Green New Deal, a vote to continue inflationary spending, and in the most troubling of fashions, a vote for a continuing resolution is a vote to continue the election interference of Jack Smith. Mr. Speaker, we told you how to use the power of the purse. Individual, single subject spending bills that would allow us to have specific review, programmatic analysis, and that would allow us to zero out the salaries of the bureaucrats who have broken bad, targeted President Trump, or cut sweetheart deals for Hunter Biden. September 30th is rapidly approaching, and you have not put us in a position to succeed. There is no way to pass all the individual appropriations bills now, and it's not like we didn't know when September 30th was going to show up on the calendar. I must be better, you must be better, and this House must be better, for it is the last best hope for tens of millions of Republicans. We demand real oversight against this weaponized government. Just look at the bribery. If tens of millions of dollars flowing from foreign corrupt people into the bank accounts of the Biden family wasn't enough for actual impeachment, why were we even looking? Joe Biden deserves impeachment for converting the vice presidency into an ATM machine for virtually his entire family. We all see it. We all know it. Now, moments ago, Speaker McCarthy endorsed an impeachment inquiry. This is a baby step following weeks of pressure from House conservatives to do more. We must move faster. Now, I will concede that the votes I have called for will likely fail: term limits, balanced budgets, maybe even impeachment. I am prepared for that eventuality because at least if we take votes, the American people get to see who's fighting for them and who's willing to tolerate more corruption and business as usual. Mr. Speaker, dust off our written January agreement. You have a copy. Reflect on the spirit of that agreement and build on the start that we had moments ago. Begin to comply. No continuing resolutions, individual spending bills or bust, votes on balanced budgets and term limits, subpoenas for Hunter Biden and the members of the Biden family who've been grifting off of this country, and the impeachment for Joe Biden that he so richly deserves. Do these things or face a motion to vacate the chair. And let me alert the country, a motion to vacate might not pass at first, but it might before the 15th vote. And if Democrats bail out McCarthy, as they may do, then I will lead the resistance to this uniparty and the Biden-McCarthy-Jeffries government that they are attempting to build.
The Biden, McCarthy, Jeffries government that they're trying to hold up and make a thing. It's kind of disturbing to have Matt Gaetz be the voice of reason on a lot of things. I would have never thought that he would go as far as he has to hold McCarthy accountable for everything that he's done. I'm glad that he can actually stick with it. And I hope that that means better things for him in the future. He's quite the character.
He is pretty entertaining. And I think it's going to be interesting to see where he goes.
Right, because from representative to Senate to might as well let's see how far he goes, and Gates presidency in the future. That could be an interesting spin.
Yeah.
I don't know. Mighty Meat, what's up? Good to see you. Thanks for hitting that thumbs up button. Appreciate
All right.
it.
Well, I probably better pop off because my morning's going to start kind of early tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody, check out Boomer. What the Flock
on
Rumble. Yes. What the Flock.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any further questions, reach out to myself or her somehow, some way, and we'll get you the information to get to What the Flock on Rumble. All right. So, okay, she didn't pop out. A few things left that I was going to go through for tonight. Let's see if I can't speed this up. Hour and a half. Not a bad night. I've been doing 3 4-hour nights. And not that I don't like doing them, because I really do. I enjoy doing them. I enjoy doing, but it seemed as I was starting to talk myself into circles. And I was talking about the same thing over and over again. And it just kind of running myself into a dry patch of trying to find stuff to talk about, because it's like I'm just hitting the same stupid notes over and over again. Gotta try to spinning it around, making it a little different. And well, we'll see. So House is going ahead and they're passing bills to prevent bans on gas-powered vehicles. Prevent bans. So we shouldn't be too concerned quite yet on these bills that are being passed in places like California that are banning gas vehicles being purchased or used or sold or whatever, however, for the House to go ahead and pass this bill preventing that from occurring is kind of interesting in itself. So then Joe Manchin's been in the news quite a bit for his potential down the center RINO-ish type stuff. Is kind of sort of looking like he wants to lean away from the Democrats and would potentially be a RINO through and through, trying to make it for West Virginia to continue to allow him to be who he is. I really don't imagine that occurring. Leaving the Democrat Party, if only he's leaving and he wasn't trying to make himself into a Republican, and he just leave himself as being the independent, I'd be okay with that. So then all right, I'm gonna show you this. This is interesting in itself. Scarborough snaps, goes off.
As far as Chuck Schumer goes,
and really releases that.
Again, I don't understand. Again, because this has been going on so long. This also is going on with ambassadors before, where they were holding up every ambassador. They're still holding up ambassadors. And Molly, I agree with you. I do think sometimes Democrats just play by Marcus of Queensberry rules. Mm-hmm. I think the Democrats need somebody that runs, is respectful of everybody in the chamber, but says if you're going to affect military readiness by holding up 600 promotions in the military, if you're going to protect our ability to have American interests represented across the globe and hold up one ambassador after another, I'm gonna make you do it, and going to make you do it in front of everybody else. And you're going to be responsible for everybody sitting in the chambers for 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. No breaks. And I'm going to tell every Democrat when they call for a recess to vote it down and keep them in there. And after I finish with the 600 military promotions that are being held up, I'd move on to the ambassadors that they're holding up. And I would grind them down to the ground. I would burn down their buildings. I would salt the earth.
I would burn down their buildings. I would salt the earth. I would make them do what I want them to do when I want them to do it, because they're holding up these promotions, and it's pretty much just Tuberville still going ahead and holding up these promotions for military. He's held up several of them. It seems to be some 600 of them. And we read the initial reasoning for him doing such a thing was he was doing it for the need to stop the ability to be transported for abortions, if necessary, by women in the military. Why is that the reason that you're in the military? If that's the reason that you're in the military, I really would like to question your whole reasoning on a lot more. And for this guy to go ahead and tell you how he would take care of it as a Democrat, and spewing his ridiculous thoughts of.
I finished with the 600 military promotions that are being held up, I'd move on to the ambassadors that they're holding up, and I would grind them down to the ground. I would burn down their buildings. I would salt the earth to make sure.
Making it okay to sound like you can do that in any way, shape, or form is unnecessary, and I think he needs to lose his job at MSDNC. Really do. I don't think this is a good idea for him. I really don't. I think this is bad. And for him to, push that to be such a thing when it comes to such an important reason why Tuberville's holding this up. Now, do I agree with Tuberville on the whole thing? Maybe he's trying to make it a point, and that's exactly what he's done. He's made it a point. He's made it a big point. He didn't want to just hold up a couple few. He wanted to hold up the whole onslaught, and he knew it was coming. He knew what was coming, and he knew what he could fight for his reasonings, as selfish as it may be, to get something, to get a big W up on the board. I really find abortions in themselves disturbing when it has nothing to do with how a man has something to do with it, and that's only when a man has something to do with it. So then, sorry, I know you get no camera today. I don't deserve it. Scandal. Chicago Teachers Union president confronted on CNN over sending son to private school. So now, school choice should always be a thing, in my opinion. I think that we should be able to send our children to where we wish. Found it kind of interesting how this particular argument just so happened to be. Now, this is one of those that I wanted to cover last night, and I didn't. And as I did this morning's show, I skipped over it because I felt it was something that should be part of a regular show, for the argument to be. Now, the CNN host is the one that shocks me the most.
Tonight, the head of the Chicago Teachers Union is facing intense backlash after it was revealed that her eldest son is enrolled in a private Catholic school. Now, the reason that this is at all controversial for some people is because Stacey Davis Gates has championed the city's public school system while consistently voicing strong opposition to private education. Now, last year, she underscored her position on the issue, saying, quote, "I can't advocate on behalf of public education without it taking root in my own household." And joining me now is Stacey Davis Gates. Stacey, thank you for being here. We wanted to have you on so you could help explain what happened here. You've likened in the past private schools of today to, quote, segregation academies of the Jim Crow South. Why then send your child to a private school after speaking out so publicly against them?
I didn't speak out against private schools. I spoke out against school choice. School choice and private schools are two different entities.
In your tweet, you
They
describe
are?
basically private. I mean, you describe private schools of the North. That was literally your language. But you've also said this, that school choice was the choice of racists. I think at the end of the day, people are asking here about whether the rhetoric matches your actions. What do you say to them?
Well, I would say that if we understand the desegregation of schools post Brown v. the Board of Education, we also understand that school districts in the South in particular closed down entire school districts, offered money to families, white families, so they could get accepted into private schools. That is, in fact, the origin of school choice in America. And I know that the right wing wants to obscure that in the same way that they want to tell us that slavery was a job training program.
Look, I understand the history that you're talking about, and I myself attended public school my entire life. But I think one of the issues here is actually something that you're.
Now, this CNN host now, as you're paying attention to her, she's the one in the red. She's the host. She's the one that's questioning this activist about her roles in these particular issues. And she asks a couple of questions that just so happen to get at this lady for her to have something click in her own head was amazing in itself. Hey, Clumsy. Good to see you. Go Hagen. Lots and lots of wonderful people here tonight. I appreciate y'all. Hit that like button for me.
Yourself raised. You wrote a letter to your colleagues and you said that our critics want you to believe that, quote, school choice is a black and white issue that lacks nuance and hard choices for people like us, black families, especially when you are parenting a black boy in America. You wrote that to explain why you chose to take your child out of public school for a sports program at a private school. The question I think your critics are asking is why not afford that nuance to the families who might live in the South Side of Chicago and in other major cities, and they want the same choice that you were able to afford to give to your child?
So a couple of things. Number one, I have 3 children, and all 3 children have attended public school, and my youngest 2 are still public school students. The second thing is that over 90% of my neighbors in my zip code send their children into schools outside of our zip code, outside of our neighborhood. And this is an issue that Black Chicagoans, Black families in Chicagoans deal with on a very regular basis, and in fact for generations. This is not an issue of just Stacey Davis Gates and her family. Quite frankly, this is an issue especially for middle-class Black families all across this country, where the public accommodation is obsolete, just like the grocery store in our communities is obsolete, just like the healthcare provisions in our community are obsolete. What I am saying, and what we have said very clearly as a union for a very long time now, is that the public accommodation has to be invested and resourced in Black communities because we have been defunded and destabilized in those same communities. So when we talk about choice, Abby, what we're talking about is a decision between Frosted Flakes and Cheerios. But in Chicago, and especially in Black neighborhoods, it's a decision with 0 and 0. And that's not a choice. That is, quite frankly, an ultimatum. Black children in the city of Chicago travel outside of their neighborhoods on average 2 hours more than any other comparative demographic.
I totally understand the point that you're making. But I do wonder, do you regret your own rhetoric here?
Regret rhetoric? What I have said are facts. Again, I'm a history teacher.
That's where I just kind of like, well, wait, your own rhetoric, and this is CNN host calling out somebody for their rhetoric? Like this is what planet am I living on? what planet am I living on right now? It really so confused to a CNN host calling out this person for their rhetoric.
I think
Before,
that
hold on
the
for a
rhetoric
second,
that I'm.
Abby.
Well, let me explain my question. Let me just explain
I
my
understand
question.
quite clearly what
What
you're
I'm
saying.
asking is that you're describing a very nuanced issue here. I understand that. I understand the history of segregation in the school system, but at the same time, what I'm trying to ask you is, do you think that your rhetoric at some point went too far when you are making a choice, because perhaps I assume you can afford to do that a lot of Chicago parents don't, because they can't afford it. And proponents of school choice say the state should have a role in helping those families who can't afford it make the same choice that you did for your family.
So a couple of things, Abby. It is nuanced in Chicago. Like I've said, we have been destabilized and defunded in our Black communities. When people speak of choice, they are speaking of two different things that are of comparative nature. Well,
you've been defunded, or your community doesn't have the funds to go ahead and put up for a building to house your own students, because the population that lives in these locations of people are already shipping their kids out as they know better. It's going to take and reduce your abilities to fund things.
What we are faced with in Chicago is an absence of a choice, is an absence of resources. And furthermore, school choice in this country has been anchored to a very racist and angry right wing. I can show you a whole host of emails that have come to me and my family detailing that level of violence and racism. So if the choice movement does want to move away from their angry and violent rhetoric, I might add, then they would do themselves a favor and reject the rhetoric of the right that tells us that history is not important. I understand the impact of segregation in Chicago, the impact of destabilization in Chicago, and I face that along with over 90% of my neighbors, and that the school that is supposed to be down the street for the cop that lives across the street from me, or the retired teacher and her family that lives next door to me, that's not afforded to us. So when we talk about rhetoric, we also have to talk about the historical record. And the historical record is very clear. The school choice movement was a cudgel for integration in this country. That is a fact. Number two, the destabilization of Black spaces throughout this country has been reprehensible and is most acutely felt with families who want to send their children to public schools. As I've said before, my children do attend public schools. My son, he has the opportunity to play sports at a school. Sports, by the way, that are not offered at our neighborhood school or any school close to our address. Again, students in Chicago, especially Black students, on average, travel almost 2 hours back and forth to school. So the real scandal, Abby, is why in 2023, Black families in Chicago and across this country have to deal with such severe inequities and such high stakes.
I totally agree that that is a scandal, but I also think that what you just described for your son is choice that you made for your family. And I think that's what your critics are pointing out here. But Stacey Davis Gates, I do appreciate you coming on here tonight. And I also want to just say that
based CNN reporter pops off. I think that was choice. That was the choice you made. That was the choice you made to stay where you're staying. You have the right to move along. The population of this earth doesn't need to be centered around certain spots like it is, as densely as people seem to think it should be, though 15-minute cities wouldn't be a bad idea At the same time, for the based CNN reporter to come to light and just be like, wait a minute here. It really seriously it kind of makes me wonder, where's the media gone lately? Is the media seriously changing landscapes that much? Where you're seeing based CNN reporters? Oh, what's up? Time Traveler, look up Manchin's net worth compared to his salary. You can do 95% of Congress. And it's not just Manchin. You can look at almost any single person that's up there. Right, exactly. AOC is worth almost $40 million, but can't pay off her own student loans because they're too expensive. No legislation. She just to talk based to enrage people. Based. I said based at the same time. Does that make me base, gay, heterosexual, cis, transphobe? Oh, I hope it doesn't make you any of that. But whatever it does, you have the right to your own opinion, your own thought. And if it just so happened to be when any of that, more power to you. Just as long as you're not forcing it on my children or anybody else's, for that matter. Time Traveler. This at the same time. No. I'm not gonna. No, not gonna do it. Sorry. It doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. I doubt my wife would appreciate that in any way, shape, or form. Really do? I doubt it. No. Go ahead again. No. Stop it. There was one other thing that happened out of Nebraska today that I had seen that I thought was kind of interesting. I have the tendency to pay attention to the post-millennial quite often. Though I complain about their little ad stuff that comes up at the beginning, I just have to know that I'm going into a post-millennial article. Now, seems to be, usually it's about that time for me to go into this type of topic, I suppose. Woman sues University of Nebraska Medical Center for cutting off her healthy breasts at age 16 in an attempt to turn her male. The Center for American Liberty announced on Wednesday that a woman who underwent gender transition as a minor and has since realized she is not male and detransitioned is taking legal action against the University of Nebraska Medical Center for manipulating her into getting a double mastectomy at the age of 16. According to the complaint, Luca Heim was robbed of her womanhood when doctors put her in radical fast track for a breast removal surgery without first offering alternative options to her gender dysphoria, such as counseling or others less invasive invasive treatments. And when it comes down to it, and you think about this, you're like, we've covered this particular topic, this issue several times on this channel. This isn't something that's really new to us. Here we've spoke of the disturbing use of this type of technology on children. And as you notice, I said you could be anything you want as an adult, just don't force it on our children. And this is the kind of stuff that I talk about when I say that. This is the kind of stuff that I say this is wrong, that anybody in any way, shape, or form thought it was okay to do this to a child. Hein, who has extensive history of mental health issues, has diagnosed with gender identity disorder by defendant Dr. Perry Johnson during the first visit. Instead of taking Hein's mental health history into account, Johnson allegedly bypassed all available options and immediately began planning for double mastectomy surgery. On July 26, 2018, Dr. Johnson was training resident physician Dr. Stefan Barrientos and plastic surgery UNMC. On that day, Doctors Johnson and Barrientos surgically removed the healthy breast of the 16-year-old Luca Hein. After surgery, the pathology report showed no lesions, masses, or no nodules were identified. In other words, the pathology report confirmed that Dr. Johnson Barrientos permanently removed the healthy breast from a 16-year-old girl who, due to her age and confounding psychosocial situation, was incapable of consenting of an irreversible procedure. The Center for American Liberty argues that the defendants Johnson and Barrientos surgery was in direct violation and then existing American Society of Plastic Surgeons recommendation that due to the emotional maturity, girls should be at least 18 years of age for aesthetic breast surgery. Although Luca was not seeking augmentation, the need for emotional and physical maturity was to ensure the sound decision applies even more poignantly to a mentally distressed teenage patient. Hein reportedly went through several painful experiences during childhood, which led to declines of her mental health. Sutton states that includes academic difficulties, panic attacks, self-harm, suicidal ideations. Hein began to question her gender identity and looked online for trans influencers who supported gender transitioning through hormones and surgery to better comprehend what she was going through. As a result, Hein started to identify as a boy, believing that transitioning would help her with her mental health issues. By rushing Luca to surgery without first placing her in hormone treatments, for at least 1 year, defendants violated each of the pro-transgender World Professional Association of Transgender Health standard of care for breast removal surgery, the complaint read. They destroyed this young person's life at such a young age for absolutely no reason whatsoever, as opposed to giving her any kind of psychological help of any sort. Went ahead, removed healthy tissue that it's really sad and disturbing to see how far they've really gone with this. So then this video here is her.
My name is Luca Hein, and I'm here today not only as someone who has lived experience and has gone through the gender transition system as a minor, but as someone who has been harmed by it and is a victim by these practices. I was a young teenager with a history of mental health issues who had been groomed and preyed upon and exploited online. Yet the medical system did not address any of my underlying issues or why I had distress or why I felt the need to escape my body at such a young age. Instead, I was put down a path of permanent medicalization, one that I am trying to reverse, but I am unable to due to these practices being non-reversible. At 16, the very first medical intervention I ever had was a double mastectomy in the name of gender-affirming care. I only had one consultation with the surgeon and one with the gender clinic before I was allowed to do this. I was not able to fully give consent at the time due to both my age and my mental health issues. A few months later, I was then put on cross-sex hormones and started taking testosterone. At 21, I now live with lifelong complications from that I have no idea if they will go away. My joints constantly hurt.
You know, so, and I think we get the majority of the point on this. You know, when it comes down to it, they did something that was not necessary. They did something that was not necessary as opposed to trying to figure out any other way. And it seems that they're going down this path further and further, continuously making it be that we should be paying attention to, you know, all of these children that have these LGBTQ needs. And it really seems to have gone too far. Seems to have gone too far when they've gone to this point of doing this particular procedure on multiple children. There's no way that this is just the only person that this has ever happened to. We've read about this a couple other times already. And now that we're getting down to yet another instance of this, you're going to get, you know, multiple stories to go along. And maybe we need to stop pushing doctors to think that this is the answer to any of this. I don't see that this should be the answer in any way, shape, or form. They're sitting in the porcelain toilet. What? Later, Gators. Later, Elizabeth. You have a good one, dear. That sucks. I fractured the fibula place. What? Okay. Stay out of chat. Just stay out of chat. I gotta teach myself that. I usually have the tendency to hang out with chat, but as soon as chat's found their own way tonight, I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and we'll take that down. We're going to get ready to almost go over to Rumble here within a short few moments. Now, Rumbles, I usually don't go very long. Those are usually fairly quick for what they are. We will talk about a little bit of some waterboarding. And not the waterboarding potentially that you're thinking of. Disturbing instance, as well as a couple of other things to go along with, you know, Koof. Those things that we just can't speak of here. This on the other hand, this we can speak of here. PTSD may be cured by ecstasy therapy. Breakthrough MDMA study. Oh, ecstasy could soon step off the dance floor and into therapist's office. Once a staple of rave culture and all-night dance parties, the illegal drug known as MDMA, ecstasy, or Molly may soon get approved for treatment post-traumatic stress disorder. All of you with PTSD. All of you with PTSD for multiple different reasons. They found a cure for you. They will help you trip in way, shape, or form. Everybody, their highs have the tendency to be slightly different depending on who you're with and surroundings and everything else. MDMA is nothing to mess with. Always be very careful. But they found a way to use it to cure PTSD. Hey, everybody with your PTSD, let's go. Time to get fucked up. Oh. One other thing. I think that's what this is. I believe that's how I ended the YouTube side was with Hurricane Lee surges violently toward the U.S. I think this hasn't updated. Just hasn't updated for some part of the day. I was hoping that it would. It seems as Hurricane Lee may strike a lot further north than what originally expected. Be careful, everybody. That's in any of these locations. Dangerous hurricane is on its way, ready to collide with the United States here anytime, somewhere, sometime. I'm kind of disturbed that didn't actually update. Figured that would have updated. And yeah, like I said, that was going to be we'll flash this because we can. Put this up on the screen here real quick. Here you go. Suddenly at the age of 34, just a little preview to what you'll see come up here. We're going to make our way over to Rumble. What's up, Snoozy Loses over there? Looked like Squab was there for a minute. If you haven't made yourself over there, do so. Otherwise, here you go with a quick little link that will bring you there. I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you to the YouTube. Thank you, Clumsy, for the gifted membership. I didn't see who actually picked that up. I'll take a look later. I do appreciate you. Thank you so much. I love y'all. Later.
People aren't buying at CNN, you dumb bastards. They're not buying it.